It's all about what we have and how we share it. Amos is writing to people who, he's prophesying to people who are comfortable, they're wealthy. Things have been going really well in the country, and there are a big group of people who lie on their Tempur-Pedics and ignore those who have to sleep on mats on the floor. And he's outraged. They go to worship, but it doesn't seem to change their behavior toward those who are in need. And so he rails against them and says, you're going to be the first ones to be taken off into exile. And of course, Timothy has that famous line, we know it by heart, don't we? For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. He's warning them. Even last Sunday in that parable, we're talking about not being able to serve God and wealth. Mammon is the word that's used there. It's something evil, something that can trip us up. And then Jesus tells this marvelous parable. It's a parable, you know. What do you take away from this parable? What do you hear? I like to go sometimes to a site called Sermon Central. I go there as much for the possibility of finding some good illustrations, as well as to discover what I'm not supposed to say in a sermon. And as I went to that site this time, I just thought, what did they take away from this particular parable? And most of them, I would say 75% of them, said that what Jesus is saying here is that there really is a hell. Well, isn't that good news? Isn't that what you want to hear preached today? But I don't think that's what Jesus is saying. In fact, Jesus is really not describing what it's like after you die at all. The popular thinking was that when you died, you went to a place called Hades. Hades was, and I don't know how to explain this, it was where the dead lived. Does that make sense? Whether you were bad or good, that's where you went. Whether you were righteous or someone who ignored God, you went to Hades. There was a place for each of them. And so that's kind of the picture that Jesus is painting here, so it would connect with people. But also the thinking of the day was that if you're wealthy, if you're well-to-do, if you're comfortable in this life, then you're obviously blessed by God. And if you're poor, then you must have done something wrong in life, and that's why you're there. There's all sorts of stuff going on in this parable. For example, the rich man isn't named. Names are important in Jesus' day. The poor man's named. His name is Lazarus, which means God helps. And then when they die, isn't it interesting? Did you hear when they die? When the poor man dies, he's carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. The rich man dies, he's buried. That's it. And then, of course, their fates are completely reversed in the afterlife. Remember Mary's Magnificat? The poor, the lowly are lifted up, and the rich and the mighty are brought low. It seems to be exactly what's happening in Jesus' parable. But the parable is told by Jesus because he's already encountered people who are lovers of money, because he's already encountered people who go to worship but ignore those who are most in need. And so he tells the parable to talk about the urgency of living your life for the sake of the world. Remember, Jesus is going to Jerusalem. He'll be there in a couple of chapters, and things are not going to go well for him. He's going to continue the teaching, but he's going to end up on a cross. He doesn't have long to live, and so he preaches, teaches, and uses these parables as a way of saying, this is urgent stuff. This is important. Pay attention to this. Now, the problem with these particular lessons is that they seem to be addressed to the rich and the wealthy. And typically we think, yes, those people should really pay attention. I went on the internet and came across a statistic. Now I know it's dangerous to go on the internet. I used to have a sign on my desk that said, the thing about quotes on the internet is you cannot confirm their validity. And that was by Abraham Lincoln. Nevertheless, I think that this one is pretty accurate because I did a little research on this myself. If you make $10,000 a year or more, you are in the top 14% of the world's income. So the parable is for us. But the parable offers not a way to get to heaven, in the good part of heaven, but rather a way to live out this life now. The proclamation that Jesus has is that he's taken care of our most feared enemy, death. And he's proclaimed that that doesn't have the final say, that there's more to come. He's taken care of that. He's prepared a place. You don't have to worry about that. So then, the question becomes, just like his questions, he's headed to death. We're all headed that way, you know. None of us gets out of this alive. So what do you do in the meantime? How do you live it out? What difference does it make? How do you walk as children of light? And Jesus says you do that by caring for the least of these, by loving your neighbor, by being who God intended you to be. We're gonna move into a stewardship time, and that usually brings to mind money, you know, giving and all of that. But Jesus talks about living our lives in ways that use not only our wealth, but our talents, our time. Those are important as well. You're going to go to a program here in the fellowship hall. I hope you all take advantage of this. It's called Living Generously. A couple of members of our congregation, Jill and Jaquel, have put this together. And they're going to talk about all the ways in which a person can live generously. And it involves using your imagination as well. You know, there are ways that we can live out our lives in ways that make a difference in the world. Let me share a story with you. I heard it this week. There's a place in town called Cooper House. Cooper House provides shelter, a home, for people who are living with addiction. Most of them are alcoholics. None of them have quit drinking. They're all still struggling with it. But it's a place where they're safe, where there are therapists and counselors and nurses. It's a place where as long as they behave themselves and respect one another, they can live there as long as they need to. Now, Cooper House, several years ago, came to a little ministry fair we had here at Olivet. We had them lined up around the fellowship hall, and I think there were some out here. And there were things that we supported through our contributions at Olivet. And one of the members of our congregation went over to discover what Cooper House was all about. And she came up with this interesting idea that maybe a small group of women could put together a meal and take it to Cooper House once a month. So one of those women shared the story of what happens. This small group of women from here at Olivet, once a month, put together a meal and serve it family style. Once a month they do this. In fact, they're going there this afternoon. And as they do, they sit down with these members of the community there at Cooper House. They pray with them. They eat with them. They hear their stories. They sing some hymns. I was told yesterday that at Easter time they decorate for Easter. They do the same thing for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. They even did it during the pandemic. They couldn't go in, but they each made a number of meals and delivered them to the office, and then they were handed out. And over the years, they've developed connections with these people. They've bridged the gap between those who are struggling and those who have something. They've bridged that chasm. And they do that every month, gathering together, getting to know these people. You see, I think part of the story that Jesus tells is that chasm that's between the rich man and Lazarus was forged by the rich man during his lifetime. It's easy to look at people who are struggling and say, I don't want to get to know them. But it makes a difference when you learn their stories, when you sit down and eat with them, when you share with them a prayer. A lady who was sharing this story said, we've invited them to come to church, but they've not come. I said, that's okay. The church has come to them in this moment. I've heard other stories like that too. A lady told the story of seeing a young man out on the street holding up a sign wanting some help. She invited him to come in and eat at a restaurant and sat there and listened to his story. I had a pastor friend suggest that when we see one of these people on the corner, that we offer them $20 for an hour of their time and then just sit down and listen to their story and find out how they got where they are now. Jesus says, bridge that gap. Make that chasm disappear. As you go out and become the people of God, connect with those who are in need, who are struggling, who need our help. Henry Nouwen was a Dutch priest, theologian, writer, social activist. He once wrote this, did I offer peace today? Did I bring a smile to someone's face? Did I say words of healing? Did I let go of my anger and resentment? Did I forgive? Did I love? These are the real questions I must trust, that the little bit of love I sow now will bear many fruits, here in this world and in the life to come. Jesus once said, I came that you might have life and have it abundantly. I remember hearing TV preachers say, if you're not wealthy, it's because you don't have enough faith. To have real life, the author of Timothy says, is to share with others, to get involved in their lives, to make a difference for those who are in need. There's an old Quaker proverb, I expect to pass through this world but once. Any good, therefore, that I can do or any kindness I can show to any fellow creature, let me do it now. Let me not defer or neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. Jesus simply wants us to bridge the chasm, share the good news. That's good news. We can do that. May you be empowered by the Spirit to build bridges. Amen.